Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, convalescing. Right now I'm in the hospital. I had a little infection happen on my ankle. It's something that they had to open up to clean out the infection. So I've got kind of a large wound from the ankle about a little up just underneath my calf. And they have a vacuum hooked up to my ankle to suck out all the blood and all the gunk that's in there. I had 2 operation procedures to clean it out. Everything's going in the right direction. It is healing properly. I am not losing a foot. I am not losing toes. It's all going to work out. But unfortunately, it is going to be a bit of a long recovery process. So rather than leave you out in the cold, I figured I'd do this podcast to let you know what's going on, and also take a moment and take some listener questions and talk about some of the pop culture that's going on. So it's me and you. It's just a two-way conversation today. There's no guest on. But the good news is we'll talk about a couple subjects, provide you with some information, and I should say down the road, guys and women, I am so excited about the episodes that I have in the can that I intended to release before and after Christmas and around New Year's. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. But let me give you some names. Great long conversation with Tom King. We talk about his Walmart Superman stories, which are amazing. We also talk about, of course, the Batman run, where it is right now, and getting started with the brand new arc. Then Dennis Kitchen, the incredible Dennis Kitchen from Kitchen Sink Press, who you might know through him being the publisher of a lot of Will Eisner's stuff for the last couple decades of his career. He was also Will's literary agent. But Dennis was an underground comic artist in the 70s and was part of that whole Robert Crumb, Richard Corbin, Spain, all the great underground comic creators. And how did they distribute their books? I mean, we all kind of hear that the books were distributed through paraphernalia stores, head shops, where you bought your bong, where you bought your one-hitter, where you bought your dugout. And it's a really fascinating look at how alternative comics were made and distributed back in that 60s, 70s period. And Dennis was a huge part of it, not only making his own comics, but was entrepreneurial enough to create Kitchen Sink Press and do the dirty work that nobody wants to do. But this is a guy who believed in creators retaining their rights. He took a page from the literary book world in terms of royalties. And yes, he would publish their works for them for a couple years, and then all the rights would revert absolutely back to the creators. So Dennis was thinking along those lines decades before the black and white era, certainly the Image era, and it's a fascinating story about how comics were made. Dennis is also a comics historian, of course, not only through his involvement with Will Eisner through the years, but he wrote an incredible biography of Al Cap, the guy who created Little Abner. And I know I've talked about it on another podcast. The story of Al Cap fascinates me because he is the Bill Cosby of cartooning and comics. A very brilliant creator, an innovative creator when it came to merchandising his works. Little Abner had an amusement park well before Disneyland did. Little Abner, he created a character called the Shmoo that was, the Beanie Baby of its day, or any other hot toy, and he owned all the rights, and he made millions. But unfortunately, also like Bill Cosby, was a pretty scumbag of a guy when it came to sexual harassment. And Dennis gives us the whole lowdown on that chapter of Al Cap's story. Really, really interesting. Can't wait to share that with you. 2 buddies, we've had him on before, happy to have him back. Chris Iliopoulos, talking about his children's books that he makes with Brad Meltzer. It's always great to check in with Chris on the art side. I Am Neil Armstrong, in particular, was a very important book for Chris to get out there. We talk about that. Of course, they have their television show in development based on these I Am children's biographies, and we get into a lot of detail with that. Chris's partner, Brad Meltzer, will also be back talking about his new history book about the real conspiracies to kill George Washington during the Revolutionary War. It's a fascinating story. It's the beginnings of the American intelligence agencies under Washington, and it's another fascinating conversation with Brad Meltzer. And then we also have one of the Tomorrow's books. You know how they've been doing looks back at each decade and doing a very granular look at month to month things that happened, books that debuted, books that bombed, the marketing trends as in comics. Well, they just released their 90s book. We've got the author of that book to talk about that fascinating decade of the 90s, boom and bust in comics, the best of times, the worst of times, and a lot of things that we forgot that happened in the 90s. But that's an excellent conversation as well. All of those are in the can. Once I am at the next step of my recovery and I've got access to my laptop again, I will be putting out these episodes in the weeks ahead. Cannot wait to share them with you. It's going to be great. Okay, next topic. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the television media that's been happening. Unfortunately, I haven't seen Aquaman, and I don't have a report. I don't have an Into the Spider-Verse Spider-Man cartoon report either because, again, I went down with this infection. But certainly I've had a lot of time to watch some TV. I thought the CW DC Elseworlds crossover was fantastic. I liked last year's better, The Crisis on Earth X, but I did think this was a really great story, really great opportunities. Fantastic to see John Wesley Shipp not only back in his old Flash uniform, but as Barry Allen. And that was a great opportunity from an alternate universe standpoint. I thought Batwoman was handled quite well, and I thought that was really interesting. A little confusing in terms of the existence of Batman in the Arrowverse and the existence of Batman in Supergirl's alternate world as well. But that's okay. I kind of like the ambiguity of it, actually. Lois and Clark were fantastic. I think Tyler Hodgkin, if I'm saying his name properly, is still a fantastic Superman. I thought the actor who played Lois Lane was great. Very excited about the prospects of them going to Argo City and continuing their storyline. And I really hope those rumors are true that CW is thinking about a Superman TV series, because I think Tyler Hodgkin is such a great Superman. I love his delivery. He's an excellent Clark Kent. He really gets it. And the way they've written him, hats off to Greg Berlanti, Mark Guggenheim, all of the CW superhero team that have been writing these television series and these crossovers. It's the best interpretation of Superman we've got since Christopher Reeve. I kind of think so. You might as well. Love to hear your opinion on all of what I'm talking about as well. And what I will continue to talk about in this episode. Shoot me an email at john@wordballoon.com, and the next episode we'll talk more about this stuff. But I loved the CW crossover. It absolutely lived up to the hype, and I thought it was a really fun show. Like I said, I did think Earth X was a little more action-packed and a little more interesting, but I was very satisfied with the crossover. The Orville, 2 episodes back. I'm digging it, man. I'm not crazy about when they focus on Beverly Johnson's characters, kids, the doctor, and her little boys. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a curmudgeon-y old man, and I just don't care about that stuff. But that said, I like the fact that they are focusing on getting a little deeper into characters in both episodes, and I think that's smart. That was kind of the right correction course that Next Generation made after the first 2 seasons, and they kind of realized, we need a Worf episode. We need a Deanna Troi episode. We need a Riker episode. We need to know these people better. And I think all of that are moves in the right direction. Of course, the special effects are amazing. The sci-fi problems of each episode are minor compared to the character problems that they're dealing with. I like the balance, and I really do think it continues to find its footing and is the lighthearted Star Trek series that we all missed, and, the wish fulfillment that Seth MacFarlane promised us. Occasionally you might hear some ambulances in the back. Again, I'm here at the hospital, so allowing the live ambience happen as it does. But right now, I'm very satisfied with the Orville, 2 episodes in. Gotham, I'm halfway through the first episode. Been busy with, various tests and things I got to do to take care of the infection. But so far, I really like this no man's land scenario that we're in. And I think all the actors are doing great. I think the characters are at interesting points. And I have good feelings about what we're getting from Gotham in its final 13 episodes. So I think that's terrific. Finished watching Titans on DC Universe. I loved it. Great show. I think they're not our regular Teen Titans. The characterizations are very different. But I'm okay with that. I think Dick Grayson was really great. I love the way they portray Jason Todd. A little disappointed that Raven is, as young as she is, but I do like her with Beast Boy, and I think they're fun together. Hawk and Dove has been just amazing, both the modern version and also in the flashback episode when they really went back and gave us the details of their background. They have fleshed out Hawk and Dove to an amazing level. The Doom Patrol episode was absolutely everything you wanted in a Doom Patrol TV show, and I cannot wait for the prospects of the Doom Patrol TV series. Looks just great. They just nailed it. So I got to say, on balance, I really enjoyed the first season of Titans. Haven't delved into Young Justice yet. I know that has just debuted on DC Universe. I will be watching that, and probably in the next podcast we'll have a few thoughts on that. Love the Young Justice series. It's always been great. Greg Weisman and company knew what they were doing from season 1 on, and I'm very happy that they have the opportunity to generate new episodes. So all that, really, really interesting. How about Star Trek Discovery? I watched all the short treks, and let's go through them all. The Tilly episode, I thought it was okay. It was kind of like, it reminded me of a decent second or third season Next Generation in terms of Tilly helping the Queen think about ruling her planet and, a little interpersonal relationship moment. It was fine. It wasn't, I'd say it was C+ in the most positive way. I would have liked a little more story, action, you name it. But I understand these are, 12 to 15-minute stories, so they've got a short canvas to work on. But I do think the Tilly episode was pretty good. Loved Calypso, the second episode. So many mysteries. 1,000 years in the future. Is that a temporary status quo of the Discovery? Is the crew dead and the Discovery's just been idle for 1,000 years? All of the mysteries in Calypso were fantastic. Michael Chabon at his writing best. I loved the analogies to the Odyssey, and I loved the pseudo-romance between the ship's AI and I forget his name right now. The main character. But I thought it was great. I thought it was poetic in the best way. Michael Chabon's a genius. We know he's working on the Picard series. That only tells me that this is a taste of the kind of smart storytelling we're likely to get with the Patrick Stewart series with Michael Chabon in the writer's room. Brilliant guy. Gets it. Always has. Cavalier and Clay, his short stories, his novels. I was very relieved when Michael Chabon was named as one of the principal writers of the Patrick Stewart Picard series. And I thought Calypso was an efficient, compact, but excellent story. It really was my favorite of the 4 stories. The Saru story, I liked it, but I got to say I'm still confused by his race. It reminded me, in an interesting contrast, to the Next Generation episode, First Contact, where they go to the society that's about to have warp drive, and Riker is injured, and they've got to pull him out. And meanwhile, Troy and Patrick Stewart are talking to the main scientist and the pseudo-president of that society about joining the Federation. And like I said, it was an interesting contrast to that First Contact Next Generation episode. But I liked it enough, and it filled in Saru's story a little bit more. Love Doug Jones. He's a great actor. I just think there still needs to be a little bit more written about Saru's race. But and also, I think that's the one that probably would have been benefited by being a full hour flashback episode about Saru's background. I almost think that the limited time worked against it because they had to cram so much information in those 12 to 15 minutes. The Harry Mudd episode, I'm still kind of... First of all, I love Rainn Wilson. And if I haven't said it before, very proud of the fact, went to high school with Rainn Wilson, acted in a play with Rainn Wilson when we were kids. I'm sure he wouldn't remember me, but because we weren't friends, but we were friendly on the production. And he's great. And I love his attitude. I loved seeing him at the Vegas Star Trek convention. I thought he was really funny. He's clearly enthusiastic about being part of Discovery. I think he loves being Harry Mudd. I don't like the idea that Harry Mudd is a killer. I like the original interpretation of Harry Mudd as being a con man and certainly capable of some bad things, but killing just, again, when we look at his past in the original series, I don't know. I'm shrugging. It's a choice. I have similar problems with Sarek and the way they portray Sarek on Discovery. What can I say? But if you love it, awesome. If you're having fun with Discovery, I'm not here to shit on your party. Have a good time and enjoy what you're seeing. But I don't know. For me, the jury's still out. But I loved the twist in the episode. I won't reveal it if you haven't seen it yet. And I thought it was a really good one. I would say, in order, Calypso was my favorite of the short treks, then Harry Mudd, then Saru, and then Tilly. And all that said, I didn't think they screwed any of them up. I think they were fine for what they were, and it was a good idea to make these things as a bridge to Season 2. I am optimistic about Season 2. I'm a huge Christopher Pike fan. I think that era, that pre-Kirk era of the Enterprise is fascinating, and there's so much to explore in Christopher Pike, despite what we've gotten in the novels, and certainly Jeffrey Hunter's amazing performance in the original Star Trek pilot. And that's a wide-open canvas, and I look forward to seeing what the writers do with Christopher Pike and, of course, young Spock. We'll see. I'm a little skeptical. I still have yet to see a justification of Michael Burnham needing to be Spock's adopted sister, but they've got 12 episodes to tell the story and explain it better. And I am absolutely open to whatever they've got to, show us in 2 weeks, and very excited to see Discovery come back. And as critical as I was of Season 1, I am an optimist, and I look forward to seeing what they do with Season 2. So there's some thoughts of Star Trek Discovery as we enter Season 2 starting in about 2 weeks. Let's take a break here and remind you that Word Balloon is sponsored by Aftershock Comics. Check out great books like Witchhammer, their first graphic novel from Cullen Bunn, Beyonders from Paul Jenkins, Jimmy's Bastards from Garth Ennis, of course, Animosity by Marguerite Bennett. Take chances with your books, and that's the great thing about Aftershock. These are creators that you love doing genres and storytelling that aren't tied by any sort of continuity. They're fresh new stories. They're great ideas. It's beautiful art, and I think they're doing a great job. And in the weeks ahead, we'll be talking to more creators like Steve Orlando and my buddy Phil Hester, and hopefully get Marguerite on the show as well. Very, very excited about what Aftershock has coming for you in 2019. But you don't have to take my word for it. Go out, check out full story descriptions, preview art, and of course the diamond codes to order the books at your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Word Balloon is also brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. League, thank you very much, especially right now, because as I convalesce, I won't be at my radio job for a couple weeks, and you're helping keep the lights on, very literally. And your support through Patreon is always appreciated. You don't have to do it. Word Balloon is free. It will always be free. But if you want to help out the cause, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon. But thank you very, very much, especially this time of year, regardless of whether I was injured or not, League of Word Balloon listeners. Okay, I thought I'd wrap up and get some questions from the audience and answer them, and you tell me what you think. Let's see. William J. Meyer, good buddy of mine who made the Word Balloon animated intro on some of my videos, asks, what are your thoughts on Section 31 in the various Star Trek shows? It always struck me as a real-world concession to Trek's ideals, a weird aberration. Yeah, but I also think, Bill, that every government and ruling body has a dirty tricks department to get the job done that nobody wants to get the job done. And I love the introduction of Section 31 in DS9. I've enjoyed the novels that have had stories revolving in Section 31 that even go back to the original series era and also spread out into Voyager and the other iterations of Star Trek. I got to be honest, while I get it as far as how Star Trek Discovery has handled Section 31, should I keep it spoiler-free? I mean, the season's out there, and if you're interested, you'd likely have already seen the season. I don't like the idea of Mirror Universe Georgiou being recruited by Section 31. I understand why, but at the end of the day, this character in particular, again, is a killer, and I think is irredeemable, and I don't think is going to be a lovable rogue or, you know, some like Sloane. Sloane was always fun. William Sadler, who played Sloane on DS9 and was Bashir's main Section 31 adversary, he was great. He played it with such lightness and fun, but was a dirty tricks guy, and every twist and turn that Sloane had in Section 31 I found fascinating. I also liked what Enterprise did with Section 31 as well. So I do like the idea of there being this Black Ops division of the Federation that they don't even know how it's operating. Obviously great comparisons to the dirty tricks departments of the CIA and the various intelligence agencies we have here in our country. You can look at the KGB, which I do think is maybe a little bit more in touch with the leadership in terms of how they operate. But no, I like it. I mean, it always intrigued me. Black Ops, I think, is always a very interesting thing. And why not have stories involving Black Ops plots in the Star Trek universe? So I got to be honest, I'm a huge fan, and I thought this is pretty neat. Mike Pellerito, great buddy of mine from Archie Comics. John, when I was in the hospital, I had a med tech who worked at Kamiko. I always wondered if all this ended, what people's next career might be. So I guess he's asking, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing comics? Well, I kind of already do it. I mean, my day job's in radio. I recently started the Boxing Big Bout podcast, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. Can't wait to get back to that and do more interviews. We've only had 8 episodes so far. So I'm scratching my creative itches. And at the end of the day, I am a broadcaster, podcaster first and foremost. I don't need to be talking about comics, but I love comics and have loved my little, episodes that aren't comic-centric when I got to talk to people like Tim Matheson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Dana Gould, Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter. All that stuff is fantastic for me, and I'm just a pop culture guy. So if I wasn't doing this specifically for comics, I would likely be doing it as well in my other interests. Let's see, who else? Lord Retail, Jermaine Exum, everybody, one of the best retailers in the business, asked me, do you know which episodes out of all the episodes have had the most downloads? You don't have to say which one, just wondering if you know. Well, yes, of course I know. And in fact, I compiled a list of the top 10 all-time episodes that have been the most downloaded. Believe it or not, 2018 has the number 1 episode. It was about Bendis talking about his recovery from his MRSA infection, joining DC. Lots of people obviously downloaded that. And in fact, it is the top episode by a very sizable 5-figure number above the second largest most downloads. But yeah, and it's interesting because these years and these shows do actually span the various years of Word Balloon. You know, I'm entering my 14th year, or this is my 14th year. The 14th anniversary is coming in May. Isn't that crazy? May 10th, 2005 will be the 14th anniversary for Word Balloon. So the Bendis episode, Recovery, joining DC, all that information from February 9th of 2018, that's number one. Number two, we go all the way back to 2007. And it's a great conversation I had. It's been a long time since I've talked to him because he hasn't been doing a lot of comic book work, but still does incredible work in animation and live-action television. And that's our good friend Alan Heinberg. And this was around the time that he was doing the Wonder Woman comic and Young Avengers, and, of course, his excellent work on the television series Grey's Anatomy, one of my sister's absolute favorite shows, and kind of an inside joke with me and Alan where I would, get her list of kind of spoilery soap opera questions about all the characters in Grey's. And he loved it. And just a good guy. I really like Alan a lot. I miss talking to him. He, as you know, wrote the Wonder Woman screenplay for the first movie. Non-disclosure agreements that he has with Warner Brothers precludes him from even doing an interview about it, even though the movie's already done. I'm hoping that will change. I have no idea if there are any time limits or anything, but I absolutely respect if Alan says, John, I really love talking to you, but I can't talk about X, then it's okay. He did the Legion of Superheroes cartoon that only lasted those 2 seasons, but was so fantastic. So yeah, Alan's great. And maybe not surprisingly, but he's number 2. Tom King from March 9th of 2018, right after the marriage of Batman and Catwoman that didn't happen, and Bane declaring the bat is broken. That's number 3. So isn't that interesting? Two of the representations of top 10 all-time episodes actually happened in the last calendar year. There's a third one as well. Bendis in July of 2018 is number 3. Then we go back to his days writing the Avengers. Bendis is also those are the first 4. Number 5 is also a Bendis tapes, and this one took place when Brian was writing all the Avengers titles, May 18th of 2010. Then, here's an interesting combination. Steve Wacker, who now is so big in Marvel Animation, this is still when he was editing a good handful of the top Marvel books, and also was a double feature with my good buddy Martin Pasco. And this was from January 25th of 2012. The next one is a Rob Liefeld episode. And hang on one second. I'm going to have to look up that date.